Cecily, surely such a utilitarian occupation as the watering of flowers is rather Moulton's duty than yours, especially at a moment when intellectual pleasures await you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it to page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I do not like German. It isn't at all a becoming language, and I know perfectly well I would quite clean up my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he always lays particular stress on your German when he is leaving town.
Uncle Jack is so serious. Sometimes he is so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity to manners, especially to be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one who has a high sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Mr. Worley has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know German and geography, and things that kind of influence a man very much.
I do not think that even I can produce any effect on a character that, according to his own brother's admissions, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not sure I would desire to proclaim him. I am not in favor of this modern mania for turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. As a man sows, so shall he. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really don't see why you should keep a diary at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, then I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is a diary we all carry about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that never happened, and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Lottie sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of the 3-volume novel, Cecily. I wrote one myself in earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not happen. I do not like novels that happen. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily, and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript, unfortunately, was abandoned. I use the word in the sense of lost or misled. Do your work, child. These speculations are properties.
But I see Dr. Chaucer coming up to the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
Well, how are we this morning, Miss Prism? I assume well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her much good to have a short stroll near the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I haven't mentioned anything about the headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that, and not about my German when the rector came in.
Cecily, I hope you are not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. If I were Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. Metaphorically, I speak in metaphor, as drawn from the beats. Mr. Worthing has returned from town yet, has he not?
We do not expect him until Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He is not one whose sole aim is for enjoyment, unlike his unfortunate young brother seems to be. Well, I shall leave Egeria and her pupil to their studies.
Egeria? My name is Lieutenant t-shirt, Doctor?
Classical illusion that's merely drawn from the pagan authors. Now, I shall no doubt see you both at Earnest.
I think, dear Doctor, that I will have a stroll with you. I find I have headache after all, and a walk might do good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism. We shall go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee, you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy! Horrid geography. Horrid German!
Mr. Ernest Worthing has driven over from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, before the Albany. Uncle Jack's brother? Did you tell Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned that you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was very anxious to speak with you privately for a moment.
Well, tell Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here, and I suppose better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid you look just like everyone else.
Mr. Ernest Worthing.
He does.
You must be my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
I'm afraid you must be under some misconception. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I'm more usually tall for my age. But I'm your cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, Uncle Jack's brother. My cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, wicked? You mustn't think I'm wicked, cousin Cecily.
If you are not, then you certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been living a double life. Pretending to be wicked and being real good all the time? That would be hypocrisy.
Well, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I have been bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that. Though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It is much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back until Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment, and I am obliged to go off by train on Monday morning. I have a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it any more but in London?
No, the appointment's in London.
Well, of course, I know how important it is to not give a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But I still think you'd better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to talk to you about your immigrating.
About my what?
Immigrating. He's going to buy your outfit.
Oh, I would never let Jack buy my outfits. He has no taste in neckties whatsoever.
Oh, I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle Jack is sending you to Australia.
Australia? I rather fine.
Well, at dinner on Wednesday night, Uncle Jack said that you have to choose between this world
This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
That I'm afraid I am not. Which is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Would you mind my reforming this afternoon?
It's rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I'm feeling much better.
You are looking a little worse.
That is because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one retires regular and eats meals. Won't you come in?
Thank you. Might I have a buttonhole first? I never have any appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Maréchal meal?
No, I'd much rather have a pink rose.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things.
And Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I ever saw.
Miss Prism says all good looks are a snare.
Well, they are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught.
Oh, I don't think I'm prepared to catch a sensible man. I should learn to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, Dr. Toswell. You should get married. A misanthrope, I can understand. A womanthrope, never.
Believe me, I do not deserve such an illogistic phrase. It's decided from the primitive churches that they're against matrimony.
That is obviously the reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by consistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
Are you saying a man is unattractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
As that I've been told, not even to her.
That depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can always be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green. I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from fruits. But where, Cecily?
She must have followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing,
Mr. Worthing,
this is indeed a surprise. We did not look for you till Monday afternoon.
Yes, I returned sooner than expected. Dr. Chasuble, I pray you are well.
what garb of woe has betokened this calamity?
My brother,
More shameful deaths and extravagance.
Living his life of pleasure?
dead! Oh!
Your brother,
Dead!
Quite dead.
what a blessed tale. I trust you will prophesy.
I hope you know that you are one of the more sincere and forgiving of brothers.
Oh, poor Ernest. He had many blows, but oh, it is a sad, sad blow.
Indeed it is. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died in Paris. I received a telegram this morning from the Grand Hotel.
What was the cause of death?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, Miss Prism, charity! No one is perfect. I myself am susceptible to draughts. Now, where did he like the ceremony to be?
He seemed to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I fear that hardly points to any very serious thought of mine. You will no doubt allow me to make some sort of ceremony next Sunday. I've done very many christenings and sermons on my time being. There's even one I did that was at a cathedral, and the bishop there was very impressed with some of my marriages.
Ah, you mentioned christenings, didn't you? Well, I suppose you know how to christen? I mean, of course you are continually christening.
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poorer classes on the subject, but they don't seem to know what thrift is.
Is there some infant you are interested in, Mr. Warden? I assume your brother was unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes.
People who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
I'm very fond of children, but no. The fact is, I'd like to be christened myself this afternoon, if you've got nothing better to do.
Haven't you been christened before?
I don't remember anything about it.
You have no great doubts?
Well, I certainly intend to. Of course, you won't mind performing the ceremony. I mean, I'm a little old now.
No, it is perfectly canonically practiced to have immersion and sprinkling at an older age.
Immersion?
Sprinkling is all that'll do. You know, the weather seems so changeable around here. At what hour would you like it to be?
I might trot round about 5 o'clock, if that suits you.
Splendidly. I have a set of twins around that time. They were born in your cottage estate. Poor Jenkins, the carter. Very hard-working man.
I don't really see much fun being christened with other babies. That seems rather childish. How about 5:30?
Admirably, admirably. And now, I shall leave this house that is full of sorrow. You know, some bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack, I'm so pleased to see you are back. What poor clothes you have on. Do go and change them.
Cecily!
My child, my child!
Uncle Jack, do look happy. You look as if you have a toothache. And I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother.
Uncle Jack, don't say that. However badly you may be behaved to in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to so. I'll talk to him out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
Well, this is a very interesting tiding.
After we had all been resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me peculiarly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room? I don't know what to make of this situation, but I say it's perfectly absurd.
Brother John, I've come down from town to tell you that I am very sorry for all the trouble that I have given you in the past and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think him coming down here perfectly disgraceful. He knows perfectly well who are you.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There's some good in everyone. Ernest here has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there must be much good in his time to an invalid, and least the pleasures of letting him sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking about Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Well, I won't have to talk to you about Bunbury or anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
I must admit the faults were all on my side. I must say that I think Brother John's coldness to me is peculiarly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering it is the first time that I've been here.
Uncle Jack? If you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never!
Oh, well, this shall be the last time I do it.
Well, I believe we should leave these two brothers alone after their recolonization.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
put Mr. Ernest Swirling's things in the room next to yours.
What?
Mr. Ernest Swirling's luggage. I unpacked them and put them in the room next to your own.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 3 portmanteau shoes, a dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large lunch basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay for more than a week this time.
Merryman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has suddenly been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful liar you are, Jack. I haven't heard anyone call me back to town.
Yes, you have.
Oh, really? Well, I haven't heard them.
Well, your duty as a gentleman calls you.
My duties as a gentleman have never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
Oh, I can clearly see that.
Well, Cecily is a darling.
Don't you dare talk about Cecily that way. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes.
Oh,
You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why on earth don't you go up and change? It is perfectly childish to be in deep mourning for a man who's actually staying in your house as a guest for a whole week.
you are certainly not staying in my house for a whole week as a guest or anything of the kind. You've got to leave by the 4:05 train.
Well, I certainly won't leave so long as you are in mourning. It would be most unfriendly. If I were in mourning, I should hope that you wouldn't leave either. It would be most unkind.
Well, will you leave if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you are not too long. Never seen someone take so long to dress with such little results.
Well, it's better than being constantly overdressed as you are.
If I'm a little overdressed, I make up for it by being extremely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and the very presence in my garden utterly absurd. However, you've got the 4:05 train to catch, and I certainly hope you have a pleasant journey home. This bun-beering, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
I think it has been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that is everything. Now, I must see her before I go and make arrangements for another funny period. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I'm merely going back to order the flowers. I've got you and Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog park for me.
Oh, is he going to take you out for a nice drive?
I'm afraid he's going to send me home.
Then we've got to part.
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting.
It's always painful to part with people whom you only know for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends was to be enjoyed by community. But even a momentary separation, anyone who wants to be introduced, is almost unbearable. You can wait Merriman for 5 minutes.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I hope I shall not offend Cecily if I state quite frankly and openly that you seem to me to be in every way the very visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you credit, Ernest. If you allow me to copy your remarks into my diary.
You have a diary? Well, I'd give anything to see it. May I?
Oh, no. You see, it is simply a very earnest record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you'll order a copy. But pray, Ernest, don't stop. I'd like to take it down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more. No, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell cough.
Ever since I have first looked upon your wonderful and incomparable beauty, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think that you should say that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, and hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't make much sense, does it?
Cecily!
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
Tell her to come around the same hour next week.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack will be very annoyed if you stay till next week at the same hour.
Oh, I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anybody else in the whole world except for you. I love you, Cecily. Oh, you will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Why, of course. We've been engaged for the last 3 months.
The last few months.
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
How did we become engaged?
Well, ever since your Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a young brother that was very wicked and bad, you of course formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and his prison. And a man who is much talked about is always very effective. One feels there's something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish at first, but I fell in love with you.
Darling, and when was the engagement actually settled?
On the February 14th last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or the other, never long short of myself, except to ruin this dear old tree here. The next day I bought this ring in your name, and this bangle which you never tell. I promised you always to wear.
Did I get you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've got really good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've given you for always being such a terrible life. And this is a box in which I keep all your dear letters.
Oh, my sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that. I wrote only too well, I was forced to write you letters for you. I wrote 3 times a week and sometimes often.
Will you let me read them, Cecily?
Oh no, I couldn't let you possibly. They made me sound far too conceited. Besides, the 3 you wrote to me after I had broken off the engagement are so beautiful, so badly spelled, I can hardly read them without crying a little.
Was the engagement ever actually broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can see the entry if you like. Today I broke off the engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather continues charming.
What had I done, Cecily? I had done nothing at all. I'm very hurt indeed to hear that you'd broken off the engagement, especially while the weather was so charming.
It would have hardly been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a wonderful angel you are, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy. Does your dress go naturally?
Yes, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You won't break off the engagement ever again, Cecily?
Oh, I don't think I could. Besides, of course, there's the question of your name.
Ah, yes, of course.
You must not laugh at me, darling. But it always been a whole street of mine to love someone whose name is Earnest. There's something in that name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I could be any poor man who thinks that there's not confidence.
Do you mean to say, my dear, that you could not love me if I had some other name?
But what other name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance?
I do not like the name of Algernon.
Well, my own sweet, loving little darling, I can't see why you should object to the name of Algernon. It's a perfectly fine name. Half the chaps who get into bankruptcy court are called Algernon. Besides, Cecily, my name were Algie. Would you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear that I will not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here, I suppose, is most learned in all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. Choswell is the most learned man. He's never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Right, I must go see him on most important business. I mean, most important business.
Oh,
I should be gone for more than half an hour.
considering that we've been engaged since February 14th, and only late today for the first time, I think it's rather hard that you should leave for such a long period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 22 minutes?
Well, I will be as quick as possible.
What an impetuous boy he is. I love his hair so much. I was going to suppose into my diary.
I think Miss Fairfax calls to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, she states.
Is it Worthing in his library.
Mr. Worthing went in the direction of the rector some time ago.
Pray ask the lady to come here, and you can bring tea. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon.
Yes, miss.
A Miss Fairfax. I suppose one of the many good elderly women associated with Uncle Jack. It's a philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so foreign of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. I like her already more than I can say. I guess the impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me after we've only known each other for such a comparatively short time. Pray sit down.
Yes. I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Then that is all quite settled then, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity for my explaining who I am. You've heard of my papa, Lord Bracknell, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Well, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown outside of the family circle, and I think that is quite as it should be. Home seems to be the proper sphere for the man. Once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does he not? I don't quite like that. It makes men so attractive. Cecily, Mamma's whose views on education were remarkably strict has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. Do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, none at all, Gwendolyn. I'm very fond of being looked at.
Well, you are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh no, I live here.
Well, surely your mother, some other female relative of advanced years, resides here also?
Oh no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My guardian, with his assistance in this prison, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
It is strange. He never mentioned to me he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. Cecily, I've liked you since the moment I met you, but now that I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot say that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. In fact, I wish that you weren't so quite alluring in appearance and just a little bit older than you seem to be. In fact, if I might speak candidly.
Pray do. I think whenever one has something unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well then, Cecily, to speak with perfect candor, I wish that you were fully 42 and more than unusually plain for your age. Ernest has a very strong and upright nature. The thought of disloyalty is as impossible to him as deception, although disloyalty, even of men of the highest moral character, are often susceptible to the physical charms of others. History provides us with much painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so indeed, history would be quite unreadable, would it not?
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn, but did you say Ernest?
Yes, I did.
Oh, well, it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
He never mentioned to me he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they've not been on very good terms for a long time.
Ah, that explains it. In fact, now that I think of it, I never heard any man mention his brother. The topic seems most distasteful to them. Cecily, you have lifted a load from my mind. I was growing almost anxious. And it would have been such a bother if a cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite certain that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
Dear Gwendolyn, there's no reason why she made it a secret to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to come to the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I felt there was some slight error, Miss Cardew, for I am to be engaged to Mr. Ernest Worthing. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post Saturday at the latest.
Dearest Gwendolyn, you must be for some misconception. Ernest proposed to me. Exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is very strange, for he proposed to me yesterday.
becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrap Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is no time for your shallow math and manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am very glad to say that I have never seen a spade. You know, it is very obvious that our social spheres have been very widely different.
Shall I lay the tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that's why you live in town.
Quite a well-kept garden, this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh yes, flowers are common here, as people are in London.
Personally, I don't understand how anybody manages to live in the country if anyone who's anyone does. The country's always bored me to death.
Ah, this is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy is suffering very much from the present. I'm told it's an epidemic amongst them. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Why, thank you. Detestable girl, but I require tea.
Sugar?
Oh, no, thank you. Sugar's not fashionable anymore.
Cake or muffins?
Muffins, please. Cake is rarely seen in the best houses nowadays.
And that, Miss Fairfax?
Oh, thank you. You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and although I have most distinctively asked you for muffins, you have given me cake. Now, I am known for the extreme sweetness of my deposition and the extraordinary kindness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my dear boy, my dear trusting boy, that is, from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
I distrusted you from the moment I met you. I felt that you were false and deceitful, and I have never been deceived in such a manner.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest! My own Ernest!
Gwendolyn!
Oh, a moment, dear Ernest. Might I ask if you are engaged to this young lady?
Oh, to dear little Cecily? Why, of course not. What could have put such an idea in that pretty head of yours?
Oh, thank you, you may.
Gwendolyn, I knew there must have been some misunderstanding. The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my guardian, Mr. John Gordon.
I beg your pardon.
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack. Jack.
My own love.
But a moment! Ernest, pray answer my question. Are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady?
Good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little Algernon. Cannot deny it.
Oh. Is your name really John?
Oh, well, I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked, but the truth is, my name is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced upon both of us.
Oh, my poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet long Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There's just one question I wish to be allowed to ask my guardian.
What an admirable idea. Mr. Worthing! Miss Cardew and I are engaged to be married to your brother Ernest. So it is a matter of great importance to us that we know at present where your brother Ernest is at present.
Cecily, Gwendolyn, it pains me greatly to be forced to speak the truth. It's the first time in my life I've been put in such a painful position. I'm quite inexperienced in the matter, but to tell you quite frankly, I have no brother, Ernest. I have no brother at all. I've never had a brother, and well, I certainly don't intend on having one anytime in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Have you never had a brother of any kind?
Nope, not of any kind.
Well, I think it is quite clear, Miss Cardew, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for any young girls when we find ourselves, is it?
Let us retreat to the house. They'll hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
I suppose this ghastly state of things is what you call Bunbury.
Yes. Perfectly fine Bunbury has been as well. Probably one of the best Bunburys I have ever had in my whole life.
Oh, you know quite a Bunbury around here.
That is absurd. Everyone has the right to Bunbury wherever one chooses. Any serious Bunburys knows that.
Oh, serious Bunbury's, good heavens!
Well, one must be serious about something. And I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What you happen to be serious about, I haven't the slightest idea. About everything, I should suppose. You have such a trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction I get out of this whole mess is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded, hasn't he? Won't be able to run off to the countryside as often as you like, dear Algie. A very good thing, too.
Well, your brother is a little off-color now, isn't he, Jack? You won't be able to run up to town as often as your wicked custom was. Not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I think it's perfectly disgraceful you taking in a sweet, innocent girl like her. Not to mention she is my ward.
I can see no possible defense in you deceiving a brilliant, clever, thoroughly sophisticated young lady like Miss Fairfax. I speak of she is my cousin.
I don't care if she's your cousin. I'm going to be married to her. I love her.
Well, I want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
I shall make good care that you never are.
Yes. Well, I don't see much possibility of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
Well, that's none of your business now, is it?
If it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. It's very vulgar to speak of one's business. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How can you stand there, calmly eating muffins when we are under such dire circumstances I can't make out? I say it's perfectly heartless.
Well, I can't eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cuff. Besides, one must always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I think it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all, under the circumstances.
Yes. Well, when I am in trouble, I eat to console myself. Indeed, anyone who knows me very intimately will know that whenever I am in very great trouble, I refuse everything except for food and drink. Currently, I'm eating muffins because I'm upset. Besides, I'm fond of muffins.
I don't care if you're fond of muffins. You shouldn't eat them all in such a greedy way.
Well, I wish you would have some tea cake instead. Oh! said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless of you, under the circumstances.
Yes.
That's a very different matter.
Well, the muffins are all the same.
Alger, I wish to goodness you would just go!
You can't ask me to leave without having dinner. It is absurd. I never leave without my dinner. Only people like vegetarians do that. Besides, I've made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
The sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. I myself have arranged with Dr. Chasuble to be christened. Naturally, I'll be taking the name of Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened if I like. There's no evidence I ever was, and extremely likely that I never have been christened. Dr. Chasuble agrees. You, however, you've been christened already.
Oh, yes, well, I haven't christened in years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That's the important matter.
Oh, yes, well, you are not sure if you have been christened at all. And I know my constitution can handle it. It might make you very unwell. It's very dangerous you venturing on it now, especially considering the fact that you need hardly forget that someone very close to you was very nearly carried off in Paris by a severe chill.
Yes, but you said yourself a severe chill wasn't hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but science is always making such amazing advancements in things.
That is just complete nonsense.
Jack, you are at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't.
Oh, but I hate tea cake.
Then why on earth would you serve tea cake up to your guests? What ideas have you of hospitality?
Alger, I wish to goodness you would go! I've already asked you to go, so go!
Well, I won't go. I have tea left. Besides, there are 2 muffins left.
Certainly, it's the only thing to do now.
This silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
A most distasteful one.
But you will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing! I have a question for you, much depends upon your reply.
Gwendolyn, your common sense is invaluable. Mr. Mulberry, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
So that I might have the opportunity of meeting you, of course.
That certainly seems a satisfactory explanation, does it not?
Yes, dear, if you can believe it.
I don't. But that does not affect the wonderful beauty of his answer.
True. In matters of grave importance, style, not sincerity, is the vital thing. Mr. Worthing! What explanation can you offer me for pretending to be someone else in town? Was it so that you could come up to visit me as often as possible?
Can you doubt it, Miss Fairfax?
I have the greatest doubts upon the subject, but I intend to crush them, and now is not the time for German skepticism. Their answers seem quite sufficient, do they not? Especially Mr. Worthing's.
I am more than content with what Mr. Mulberry said. His voice alone inspires him with absolute fidelity.
Then you think we should forgive them?
Yes, I mean no.
All right. I had almost forgotten that there are principles at stake that one must not surrender. Which of us should tell them the task is not a pleasant one?
Could we both not speak at the same time?
An admirable idea. I nearly always speak at the same time as other people. You will take the time for me, will you know? Certainly. All right. Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Our Christian names? Is that all? But we are going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, are you prepared to do such a terrible thing?
I am.
For me, are you ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How rude of it to talk of the equality of sexes. Where the question of men are concerned, they are infinitely beyond us.
Oh, we are.
I have moments of physical courage in which we women know absolutely nothing.
Oh, my darling.
Darling.
Lady Byron.
What does this mean? Merely that I am engaged to Mr. Worthing, Mamma. Come here, sit down immediately. Hesitation of any kind is a sign of mental decay in the youth and of physical weakness in the old.
Apprised, sir, by the flight of my daughter's trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin, I found her at once by luggage train. Her unhappy father is, I am glad to say, under the impression that she is attending more than usually lengthy lecture by the University Extension Scheme on the influence of a permanent income on thought. I do not propose to undeceive him. In fact, I have never undeceived him on any question I would consider it wrong. But you must firmly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately. On this point, as on all points, I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You are nothing of the kind, sir. And now, with regards, Algernon. Algernon,
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
may I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, resides?
What? Bunder? No, he's not here at present. In fact, Bunder is dead.
Dead? When did he die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
Oh, I killed Bunder. Bunder died this afternoon.
What did he die of?
Oh, Bunbury was, quite exploded.
Exploded? Was he the victim of a revolutionary outrage? I was not aware Mr. Bunbury was interested in social legislation. If so, he was well punished for his morbidity.
No, Aunt Augusta, what I mean to say is that Bunbury was found out. The doctors found out that Bunbury could not live anymore, so Bunbury died.
He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I am glad, however, that he made up his mind to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. Mr. Worthing, may I ask who is this young person whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding in what seems to me to be a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
I am to be engaged to Cecily Aunt Augusta.
I do not know if there is anything peculiarly exciting in the air of this particular part of Hertfordshire, but the number of engagements that go on seem to me to be considerably above the proper average that statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think some preliminary inquiry on my part would not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, is Miss Cardew at all connected with any of the larger railway stations in London? I merely desire information. Until yesterday, I was not aware there were any families or persons whose origin was in Earnest.
Miss Cecily Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belgrass West, Southwest, Surrey, Gervais Park, Sporting, Hertfordshire, NB.
That is not unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspire confidence, even in tradesmen. But what proof have I of their authenticity?
I have carefully preserved the court guides of the period. They are open to your inspection, Lady Brocknow.
I have no strange errors in that publication.
Well, Miss Cecily's family solicitors are Messieurs Markby, Markby, and Markby.
Markby, Markby, and Markby, a firm of the very highest position in their professions. Indeed, I am told that one of the Mr. Markbys is occasionally to be seen at dinner parties. So far, I am satisfied.
Thank you, Lady Brocknow. Oh, I also have, you'll be glad to hear, certificates of Miss Cardew's birth, baptism, whooping cough, registration, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles. Both the English and German variety, of course.
A life crowded with incident, though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I myself am not in favor of premature experiences. Mr. Worthing, as a matter of form, before Gwendolyn and I have to leave, I had better ask if Miss Cardew has any little fortune.
Oh, just around 130,000 in the funds. That is all. Goodbye, Lady Brocknow. So nice to have seen you.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. 130,000 pounds, and in the funds. Miss Cardew seems to me a most attractive young lady now that I look at her. Few girls of the present day have any really solid qualities, any of the qualities that last and improve with time. We live in, I regret to say, an age of surfaces. Come over, you dear. Yes, come. Your dress is sadly simple, and your hair looks almost as though nature might have left it. But we can soon alter all that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces a really marvelous result in a very brief period of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing, and after 3 months her own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Kindly turn round, sweet child. Note, the side view is what I want. Yes, just as I expected. There are distinct social possibilities in your profile. The 2 weak points of our age are its want of principle and its want of profile. The chin is a little higher, dear. Style largely depends on the way the chin is worn, and they are worn very high at present. Algernon?
Yes, Aunt Augusta.
There are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew's profile.
Cecily is the sweetest, dearest, prettiest girl I've ever met in the whole world, and I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Miss Cardew, I hope you know that Algernon is nothing but his debts to depend on. But I do not approve of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I hardly dreamed of allowing that to stand in my way. Well, I suppose I must give my consent.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell.
You may also address me as Aunt Augusta in the future.
Thank you.
I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta. You know, I'm not in favor of long engagements. They give the couple the chance to find out each other's true character before marriage. Never advisable.
Oh, pray, excuse my interruption, Lady Bracknell, but I am Cecily's guardian. And as her guardian, she cannot marry without my consent until she's legal age. That consent I absolutely refuse to give.
Why, I must ask? Algernon is an extremely, I may almost say, an ostentatiously eligible young man. He has nothing, but he looks everything. What more could one desire?
Oh, it pains me greatly to speak frankly about your nephew, Lady Bracknell, but I don't approve of his moral character at all. I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful, my nephew Algernon? Impossible. He's an Oxonian.
I fear there can be no doubt about the matter. Earlier this afternoon, during my temporary absence in London, under a question of romance, he obtained admission to my house under the false pretense of being my younger brother. And under an assumed name, as I've just been informed by my butler, he drank an entire pint of my Pierre Joie Brut 89, a wine I was specially reserving for myself. Continuing on with his disgraceful deception, he succeeded in the course of a single afternoon in alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every last muffin. What makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he was well aware from the very beginning that I have no brother, that I had no brother, and that I don't intend to have a brother, not of any kind. I distinctly told him myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I decided entirely to overlook my nephew's conduct of you.
Oh, that's so very generous of you, Lady Bracknell, but my decision still stands. I refuse to give my consent.
Come here, dear. How old are you, darling?
Well, I'm only 18, but I always admit to 20 at evening parties.
You are perfectly right in making some slight alterations. Indeed, a woman should never be too accurate about her age. It looks so calculating. 18, but admitting to 20 evening parties. Well, it won't be long before you are of age and free from the restraints of tutelage. So I do not think your guardian's consent is, after all, a matter of any importance.
Oh, excuse me again for interrupting, but according to the late Mr. Thomas Cardew's will, Cecily does not come of legal age till she is 35.
I do not see that as a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age. London society is full of women of the very highest birth who have, by their own free choice, remained 35 for years. Lady Dumbleton is an instance in point. To my knowledge, she has been 35 ever since she arrived at the age of 40, which was many years ago now. So I do not see any reason why our own dear Cecily should not be even more attractive at the age you mentioned than she is at present. There will be a large accumulation of property.
Algie? Could you wait for me until I was 35?
Of course I could. You know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively, but I can wait all that time. I hate waiting more than 5 minutes for anybody. It always makes me feel out of place. I myself am not punctual, but I do like punctuality in others. Even to be married is quite out of the question.
Well, what shall we do then, Cecily?
I don't know, Mr. Mumford.
Mr. Worthing, Miss Carter states positively that she cannot wait till she is 35. A remark which I am bound to say seems to show a somewhat impatient nature. I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But my Lady Bracknell, the decision's entirely in your own hands. The second you consent to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will be more than happy to allow your nephew to take my ward's hand in an alliance.
You must be quite aware that what you propose is out of the question.
Then a vow of passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I propose for Gwendolyn. Algernon, of course, can decide for himself. Come, dear, we've already missed 5, if not 6 trains. To miss any more might expose us to comment on the platform.
Christenings are ready.
The christening, sir, is not that somewhat premature.
These two men were wanting a christening as soon as possible.
At their age, the idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be baptized. I will not hear of such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he learned that this was the way in which you wasted your time and money.
So I hear there will be no christening this afternoon.
No, Dr. Chasuble, as well things stand, I don't think it'll be much value to either of us.
I'm very disappointed in this woman. However, I have been told that Miss Prism has been waiting for me at the church. So I better be.
Miss Prism? Did I hear you mention Miss Prism?
Why, yes, of course. I'm on my way to meet her as of right now.
Pray, allow me to detain you for a moment. Is this Miss Prism a female of repellent aspect remotely connected with education?
Indeed she is. She is the picture perfect of even respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam.
Miss Prism, Lady Bracknell, has been for the past 3 years Cecily's esteemed governess and valued companion.
Despite what I hear of her, I must see her at once. Let her be called for.
She approaches. She's nigh. I was told you expected me to magistrate you, Canon. Well, I have been waiting for you there for an hour and 3/4.
Prism! Prism, where is that baby? 28 years ago, you, Prism, left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104, Upper Grosvenor Street, in charge of a baby, of the male sex, in a perambulator. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigations of the Metropolitan Police Department, the perambulator was discovered without the baby inside, standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. The baby was not there. Prism, where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with shame that I do not know. I only wish that I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the morning of the day which you mentioned, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I prepared as usual to take the baby out of its perambulator. I had also with me the manuscript of a work of fiction I had written in my few unoccupied hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, for which I can never forgive myself, I deposited the manuscript in the bassinet and placed the baby in the handbag.
Where did you deposit that handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
This is a question of utmost importance. I must know. Where did you deposit the handbag that held that infant?
I left it in the cloakroom of one of the larger railway stations in London.
Which railway station?
Victoria, the Brighton one.
Then I must retire to my room. You will wait for me here?
If you are not too long, I'll wait for you all night long. What seems to be the meaning of this, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect, Dr. Chasuble. I need hardly tell you that in families of high position, strange coincidences are not supposed to occur. They are hardly considered the thing.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Yeah, Guardian seems very
Emotional. This noise is extremely unpleasant. It sounds as if he was having an argument. I despise arguments of any kind. They are always vulgar and often convincing.
You stopped.
I wish you would arrive at some conclusion. Oh, the suspense is terrible.
great pen that it will decide the happiness of more than one person.
Yes, it appears to be mine. Here's the injury it received through the upsetting of a Gower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. Here's a stain on the lining caused by the explosion of a temperance beverage, an incident that occurred at Leamington. And here on the lock are my initials. I had forgotten that in an extravagant mood I had them placed there. This bag is undoubtedly mine. Why, I am delighted to have it so unexpectedly restored to me. It's been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
More is restored to you than this bag. I was the baby placed within it.
You?
Yes, Mother!
I am unmarried!
Unmarried? Well, I do not deny that this is a serious blow, but who has the right to cast a stone against one who has suffered? Can't repentance wipe away an act of folly? Why should there be one law for men and one law for women? Oh, Mother, I forgive you!
Oh, Mr. Worthing, there is some error. There is the lady who can tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell! I hate to sound inquisitive, but could you kindly tell me who I am?
I'm afraid the news I have to give you might not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Mrs. Moncrief, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
Elder brother! Well, then I have no brother! Cecily, how could you ever doubted that I had a brother? Oh, come! What is out? My unfortunate brother! Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother! Oh, Miss Prism, my unfortunate brother! Oh, Alfie, you understand that you should treat me with more respect in the future. You've never acted like a brother towards me in all your life.
Well, not till today, little boy, I must admit. But I'm quite new at it.
My own one? But what on are you now that you're someone else? What is your Christian name?
My goodness, I've almost completely forgotten about the fact. I suppose your decision on my name is irrevocable.
Oh, I never changed in anything except for my affection.
What noble nature you have, Lord.
Then the question better be answered at once. Lady Bracknell, before I was deposited in the handbag, had I been christened already?
Every luxury that money could buy, including christening, had been lavished upon you by your fond and doting parents.
Then I have been christened already. All right, tell me my name. Give me the worst.
Being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Well, yes, but what was his Christian name?
I cannot at the present recall what the general's Christian name was, but I no doubt he had one. He was eccentric, I admit, but only in the later years, and that was the result of the Indian climate, and marriage, and indigestion, and other things of that kind.
Algie, can you recollect what our father's Christian name was?
My dear boy, we were never even on speaking terms. He died before I was a year old.
His name must be preserved in the war manuscripts at the time.
The general was essentially a man of peace, but I no doubt his name would appear in any military documentary.
Goodness, these war manuscripts should have been the subject of my constant study. Let's see, Dr. M. Generals, Malum, Maxbaum, Magley. What ghastly names these people have. Markby, Migsby, Moggs. No, Moncrief. Lieutenant 1840, Captain, Lieutenant Colonel, Colonel General 1869, Christian names, Earnest, John.
Yes, I remember that the general was called Earnest. I knew I had some particular reason for disliking the name.
Then my name is Earnest. Oh, Gwendolyn, I always told you it was Earnest, but it really is.
Oh, my own Ernest, I felt from the first you could have no other name.
Oh, Gwendolyn, it is such a painful thing for a man to find out that all of his life he's been speaking nothing but truth.
For I know that you are sure to change.
Oh, Gwendolyn,
My nephew, you seem to be displaying signs of triviality.
Not at all, Aunt Augusta. For the first time in my life, I truly understand the vital importance of being earnest.
If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends and family to come out. We still have 2 more shows left. We have tomorrow, Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday matinee at 2. We'd love to fill up this auditorium with more people, so please tell your friends and family. It's a great show. And otherwise, we have our actors.